Thank you, Rabbi Shraga.
France, maybe for a little bit, say hi, and then
right. Okay, so we're on the top of DAF Tes Amud Aleph today in Megillah, and we were learning yesterday. The Mishnah tells us that even though mezuzahs and tefillin must be written in Hebrew, but a Sefer Torah, according to the Chachamim, can be written in any language. And according to Rabbi Shimon Gamliel, he says, no, it can only be written in Greek. If you're not going to be writing it in Ksav Ashuris, which is what the Hebrew script that we have today, you can only write it in Greek. So now let's try and understand this machlokas. The Gemara had said that there's a brisa. The brisa had said that if you have text, holy text, that you write it in Targum, you write it in Aramaic. Or if you have Aramaic text that is in the Holy Scriptures and you write it in Mikra, you write it in Hebrew, or you write it in Ksav Ivri, which is another type of ancient Semitic text. So then, because you wrote the scroll in such a way that it's not in its original form, it is not Metame Esayadayim, which means it doesn't have the status of Kedusha. It's not a kosher sefer. So, and it's not a kosher sefer until you write it in Ksav Ashuris, until you write it in what we call our Hebrew letters. The Gemara's question is, this contradicts the Chachamim, because the Chachamim hold that you can write a Sefer Torah in any language. So how do you reconcile it? Amar Rava lo kasha, kan begufan shalanu, kan begufan shalahen. So Rava gives this initial answer, and he says that even our Mishnah, which allows you to write a Sefer Torah in a foreign language, only lets you transliterate it from the foreign language into Hebrew, which means, like the Yiddish, that people, when you read a book, open up a book of Yiddish. So Yiddish, the characters are Hebrew, even though the language is Yiddish. So that's what we're saying. If you want to write a Sefer Torah in French or Greek or Latin, whatever it is, it has to be in Hebrew characters. What the Bryce is saying is that if you write it in the original foreign characters, that's why it's not kosher. You know how in the old Sidurim it said Hebrew Publishing Company in Hebrew letters. So that's what is the Mishnah says you can do. What the Brisa says you cannot do is to write it in the letters of that foreign language. So Amar le Abaye b'mayu kimta lehahi begufan shalahen. So Abaye says, I don't understand how you can interpret the Brisa that way. Because if that's the case, my irya mikra shekasva targum v'targum shekasva mikra. Afilu mikra shekasva mikra v'targum shekasva mikra nami. Dahaketani ad shichtavenu ashuris ala sefer bidyo. He says, according to your argument, then why does the Brisa only say that it's not kosher because you took the Aramaic term and turned it into Hebrew, or the Hebrew and turned it into Aramaic? According to you, even if you took a Hebrew term and put it in Hebrew, but you didn't write it in the original characters of Hebrew, it's going to be puzzle as well. So if the whole point of the Brisa is to talk about the font, that it has to be a Hebrew font, then why does the Brisa emphasize the changing of the language from Targum to Mikra and from Mikra to Targum? Thank you so much. It's got nothing to do with the words themselves being translated improperly. It's got to do with the font. So the Gemara says, Elalo kasha harabanan harabbi Shimon Gamliel. So Abaye says it's a totally different explanation. I disagree with your interpretation of the Brisa. The Brisa is going according to Rabbi Shimon Gamliel, who limits the ability to translate a Sefer Torah. The Chachamim say you can translate it into any language. Rabbi Shimon Gamliel limits it only to Hebrew and to Greek. So the Gemara says, I Rabbi Shimon Gamliel ha'ika Yavanis. But that's not possible. The Brisa says it can only be Hebrew. Rabbi Shimon Gamliel says it can be not only Hebrew, but it could also be Greek. So how can you say the Brisa is like Rabbi Shimon Gamliel? So Elalo kasha, kan bisfarim, kan betfilin umezuzas. So the Gemara says, you're right. We have to come up with another answer. The Bryce is talking about writing tefillin and mezuzas. It's not talking about writing a Sefer Torah. The Mishnah, which says you can write it in any language, is a Sefer Torah. But the Bryce, which says you can only write it in Hebrew and Ksav Ashuris, is talking about tefillin and mezuzas. So the Gemara says tefillin and mezuzas my time. So let's just first of all explore why is tefillin and mezuzas different from a Sefer Torah. The answer is the Gemara, Mishum dechsiv behu v'hayu. Because the Torah says, "V'hayu hadivarim ha'ela asher anochi metzavecha hayom al levavecha," that the words that I'm giving you today, referring to the words of the Kriya Shema, they have to be b'havyasan yehu. They have to be in their original form. That's what the word v'hayu implies. They cannot be transformed or translated into another language. So the Gemara says, but wait a minute, I have a problem now, because the Brisa had said that if you change an Aramaic term into Hebrew, or a Hebrew term into Aramaic, so then it's not kosher. So my targum shekasvu mikra ika. Where do you find an Aramaic word in the Kriya Shema? Bishlama Torah ika yagarsa hadusa elahacha my targum ika. I can understand if you're talking about, if the Brise's subject is about writing a Sefer Torah in a foreign language, so then I can understand. It's telling me that if I take an Aramaic term and I turn it into Hebrew, it's possible, right? Because there are Aramaic terms in the Torah. For example, Yagarsa Hadusa, in Parshas Vayetze, Yaakov and Lavan make a treaty, and they make a pile of stones. And the Torah says that Lavan called that pile of stones in the Aramaic words Yagarsa Hadusa, because that was the language that he spoke. So if a person were to write a Sefer Torah, and instead of writing Yagarsa Hadusa, would write Gal Eid, which is the pile of stones, or right? So then it would be puzzle. But where do you find Aramaic terms in the Kriya Shema or the Parshios of the Tefillin? So you can't tell me that the subject of the Brisa is Kriya Shema and Tefillin. Elalo kasha kan b'Megillah kan b'Sfarim. The Gemara says you're right. The subject of the Brisa is not Kriya Shema and Tefillin. The subject of the Brisa is Megillas Esther. That Megillas Esther can only be written in Hebrew, and that's what makes it different from a regular Sefer Torah. Megillah my taima. Why is Megillah such an exceptional case? So the Gemara says, Dichsiv kichsavam v'chizmanom, because it says in the Megillah that it has to be written according to its writ and according to its time, which means that there's a special requirement by Megillas Esther to only write it in Hebrew. So the Gemara says, but still we have the question, my targum shekasvu mikra ika. What Aramaic terms exist in Megillas Esther? Now the truth is there are many foreign words in Megillas Esther, but those words are really from the Persian. So the Gemara's question is, where do you find Aramaic terms, which is what the word targum means? Where do you find Aramaic terms in Megillas Esther? So the Gemara says, Amar Rav Papa, v'nishma piskam hamelech. One is the word pitgam, which is the edict of the king, which the Gemara says is originally an Aramaic word. And Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, Amar b'chol hanashim yitanu yikar levalehen, that all the women shall give honor to their husbands. So it can't be that the rabbis permitted Greek if the first opinion permits everything. So Ella Ema Rabosenu Lohi Tiru Sheikasvu Ella Yavanis. But rather, the way you read it is like this. The first opinion of the Bryce is you can write a Sefer Torah in any language, and the rabbis, which refers to Shimon Gamliel, only permit you to write it in Greek. The Tanya, and then the next part of the Bryce says, Amar Rabbi Yehuda, Af Kishi Hitiru Rabosenu Yavanis, Lo hitiru ela b'sefer Torah umishum ma'isa detalmei hamelech. That even when the rabbis permitted Greek, they only permitted a Sefer Torah, the 5 books of Moses, because of a specific incident having to do with King Talmai, who was during the Second Temple period. I don't remember the exact years. If you have it in your article, you can shout it out. But it's sometime before the Common Era, probably around the period of the Hasmoneans. But it has to do with the Alexandrian Jewish community. So it's probably a little bit after the Hasmonean period, and it's because of King Talmai. And this is what is known as the Septuagint, for those of you who are students of Jewish history. It's the original translation of the Torah into Greek. Now, there are many different theories as to the origin of the Septuagint. The Chazal offer one perspective, and it's not clear whether Chazal are speaking metaphorically or allegorically or not, but they are giving us one perspective as to how the Septuagint came to be. Tanya, as the Brisa tells us, what's the story? It tells us as follows: Maaseh betalmei hamelech shekinei shivim u'shnayim zekenim v'hichnisim b'shivim u'shnayim batim. King Talmai gathers together 72 sages and puts them each one in a separate chamber. And v'logila lahem alma kinsan. He didn't tell them why he was gathering them. and he brings everyone into a private chamber, and he tells them, I want you to write for me the Torah of Moses, your teacher. Nasan HaKadosh Baruch Hu b'leiv kol echad ve'echad eitzav v'hiskimu kulam l'das echad, that Hashem created a miracle, that even though the 72 sages could not communicate with each other, each one of them changed certain texts in order so not to create an appearance of heresy in the text of the Sefer Torah, and each one made the same changes. So what were the changes that they made? V'kasvulo, and they wrote to him as follows: Elokim bara bereshis. Instead of saying in the beginning God created, they translated it as God created in the beginning. And why did they do that? Because the people would have thought, or Talmai and readers of it would have thought in the Greek, that Bereshis or Genesis was the name of a god instead of being the word in the beginning. And another...
Well, it's a very poor explanation. If you're already translating to Greek, they're only seeing the Greek, they're not seeing Bereshit.
Right, but I guess whatever word is for Bereshit, is it Genesis or whatever the word is.
Yeah, but that's just an order, a question of the order of the
Yeah,
language.
so they changed the order. Adam, we'd have to do a more careful analysis of the linguistics. Adam b'tselem uvidmus. Furthermore, it says, God said, I shall make man, instead of let us make man. And it doesn't say in our image, but just as in an image. Again, not to attribute any duality or multiplicity to God. Vayechal bayom hashishi vayishbos vayom hashvi. It says that God finished his work on day 6 and rested on day 7, even though the Torah says Vayechal bayom hashvi, that God finished his work on the 7th day. Why? Because Shabbos itself, the creation of rest, is also a creation. But that's an idea that's lost upon the reader. Zachar unekeva bira'o v'lo kasvu bira'am. Also, when it says that God created them, male and female, they may translate it as God created him or it, male and female, because them would imply that there were two separate bodies that were created, male and female. And Hava erida va'avalesham sfasim. It also says that by the Tower of Babel, God says, let us go down, and confuse their language. And he translated it as let me go down, so as not to attribute any duality to God. Vatitzchak Sarah bikaroveha. Rashi tells us, why did they change this? That when Sarah laughed to herself, it doesn't. They changed it from laughing to herself to laughing with her relatives. Wow. So why did they translate it that way? Why did they make that change? So Rashi explains, because Avraham, in the end of Parshas Lech Lecha, also laughed to himself, and God did not take Avram to task. So people would accuse God of being, misogynistic or unfair to Sarah for picking on her and not picking on Avraham. What?
Male chauvinist.
A male chauvinist. So therefore, they changed it to say that not only did Sarah laugh to herself like Avraham, but she laughed with her relatives more publicly, and that's why God took her to task. What's the real pshat? That there are two types of laughter. There's a laughter of happiness, because you know that something will come true, and there's a laughter of mockery or scorn, that that it's not going to come true. Ki ba'apam hargu shoru v'irtzanom ikru evos, that when Yaakov curses Shimon and Levi, he says that in their anger they killed a man, hargu ish. So they changed that because they didn't want to depict our patriarchs as murderers. So instead of saying that they killed a man, they wrote he killed they killed an ox. Vayikach Moshe ishto ve'ezbana vayarkivem al nosei b'nei Adam. When Moshe is traveling back to Egypt from Midian, it says that the Torah says that Moshe transported his family on a donkey. Right, so they changed that too. They transported them on a generic vehicle, because here too they didn't want Moshe to be the object of derision, of mockery. What? You're the Redeemer of Israel, couldn't afford a camel or a horse, you had to put him on a poor donkey. So that's why they changed it. The Torah at the end of Parshas Bo says that the total time that the Jews spent in Egypt was 400 years. But it really wasn't in Egypt 400 years. It was 400 years in Egypt and in the rest of their captivity, counting from the birth of Yitzchak. So to clarify that, they added those extra words. Next, Vayishlach za'atutei b'nei Yisrael ve'el za'atutei b'nei Yisrael lo shalach yado. In Parshas Mishpatim, when it says that Moshe sends the youth to greet the divine presence at Har Sinai, they change that not to youth, but rather to the princes or to the noblemen or the aristocrats, because otherwise it doesn't sound right that the youths go out to greet the Shekhinah. Okay, and then what else? 1 second. We go now to lo chemed echad mehem nasas. Instead of saying chamor, that I didn't take one donkey from them, was what Moshe says to God in Parshas Korach. Why are the Jews starting up against me? I didn't take anything for personal gain. And the example that Moshe gave was I didn't take even a donkey. So instead of saying donkey specifically, anything of desire, because this would open. Because if they would have translated it as donkey, this would have opened up to say, oh, you didn't take a donkey, but you took something else. So they didn't want that opportunity. Next, Asher chalak Hashem Elokecha osam leha'ir lechol ha'amim. There's a pasuk in Sefer Devarim, Parshas Devarim, that says that you're not allowed to bow to the sun, the moon, and the stars that God has allotted to the other nations. And in order to clarify, it's not that God permitted the other nations to worship idols, but rather God has allotted to the other nations these constellations to provide them with light. So they added those words to provide them with light. Next, Vayelech vayavod Elohim acherim asher lo tzivisi la'ovdam. The pasuk says that if a person goes and worships the sun, the moon, and the stars, asher lo tzivisi, that I have not commanded. So that I have not commanded is open-ended. It almost sounds like that God did not command them to come into existence, which implies that God is limited in His power, that things came into existence without His command. So therefore they changed it to that I did not command to worship them. That's what the pasuk means. The kasvulo, and they also write es tziras haraglayim velo kasvulo es arneves v'pnei sheishto shel talmai arneves shema. That the other word that they changed is the word arnevet. The word arnevet, I guess, when you translate it into Greek, was the same name as Talmai's wife, whose name also was Arnevet. Maybe her name was whatever the parallel in Greek is to Arnevet. So, like calling if your wife's name is Bunny, So they didn't. So Shalom. So instead, they translate it as the animal that has hopping legs or the animal that has long legs. I don't know if they translate the word siras. Probably that it has
short-legged creature.
A short-legged creature because it hops. So the bottom line is Shalom Yomar Sacha Kabi HaYehudim V'Itilu Shemushto B'Torah, that the Jews are laughing at me or mocking me and they're writing my wife's name in the Torah. So that's the reason why they changed that as well. Rabbi Shimon Gamliel Omer Af Bisram Lo Hitiru Sheyikasvu Ela Yavanis. Rabbi Shimon Gamliel says that Sifrei Torah also were not permitted to be written except in Greek. If you're not going to write it in Hebrew, you can write it in Greek. So Amar Rabbi Avo, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Halacha Rav Shimon Gamliel. That's the halacha. You can only write a Sefer Torah in Hebrew or in Greek. V'Amar Rabbi Avo, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, my time at Rav Shimon Gamliel. What's his reason? Now we just gave a reason. We gave a reason because of the whole story of the Septuagint. But apparently Rabbi Yochanan is not satisfied with that, because Rabbi Yochanan is probably of the opinion that there has to be something intrinsic to the Greek language which would give rise to Chazal allowing you, permitting you. You'd have to find some source in the Torah that Chazal could find to permit you to even in the time of Shmad, that would permit you to write it in Greek. So the answer is Omar Kra Yafte Lukim Liyefes V'Yishkon B'Ohalei Shem. That the Torah says that when Noach blessed Yefes, he says, may God provide beauty to Yefes, and may he dwell in the tents of Shem, which means Devarav Shel Yefes Yihiyu Ba'alei Shem, that the words of Yefes shall be in the tents of Shem, which means that his words, the Greek words, shall be in the tents in the Beis Medrash, in the Beis HaKnesses of Shem in the Sefer Torah. Frek the Gemara, but wait a minute, Ve'ema Gomer Magog. How do you see from there that it's referring to Greek? Yefes had many descendants. Only one of them was Yavan, but he had Gomer and Magog and a whole bunch of sons. I forget all their names. Yuval, a whole bunch of other names. So how do you know it's the Greek language and not one of those other languages? So Amar Reb Chia bar Abba, Hainu Tamed Dichsiv Yafte Elokim Liyefes Yafyuso Shel Yefes Yei B'Oholei Shem. The answer is because he blesses Yefes with the beauty of Yefes shall be in the tense of shame. What is the most beautiful language of the descendants of Yefes? It's Greek. So the Gemara is appreciating that there's an aesthetic value to the Greek language that is unique to Greek out of all of the other languages that we know of that are outside of Hebrew. And that's why when it says that there's a right to take the beauty of Yefes and put it in the tense of Shem, it must be referring to the Greek language over all other languages. This, of course, relates to a number of important topics related to Chanukah and the Yavanim, but we don't have time for this. But this is an important Gemara when you want to try and understand what the allure of Yavan was and what the Chashmonaim were trying to fight. Let us go on. Next Mishnah. Ein ben kohen mashuach b'shemen hamishcha lemeruba begadim elapar haba al kol hamitzvos. In keeping with the whole theme of this parak of these Mishnayos, which talk about ein ben A to lebi LC. There's no difference between this thing and that thing except the following. So we're continuing that theme, and we say the only difference between a Kohen Mashuach b'Shemen HaMishcha L'Meruba Begadim, the only difference between two types of Kohen Gadol. Now, historically we know, the Torah says that when a person becomes a Kohen Gadol, besides placing the 8 special vestments on him, what are you supposed to do? You're supposed to anoint him with the anointing oil that was manufactured by Moshe Rabbeinu. But we know that at some point in history, in the times of Yoshiyahu HaMelech, he took the anointing oil and put it into hiding. There were a number of things that he put into hiding, anticipating the impending destruction of the Beis HaMikdash. So from that point forward, throughout the end of the first temple and throughout the second temple period, you could be a Kohen Gadol, but you weren't anointed. So is there any halachic ramification to that? The only thing is par haba al kol hamitzvos. The Torah says that when a regular Jew commits an accidental sin for which the punishment is kares, he has to bring a korban chatas. However, when a Kohen Gadol does that, and it says the Hamashiach, the person who's anointed, he brings a special kind of animal, a special kind of korban chatas. So that only applies to a Kohen who was anointed with the Shemen HaMishcha. But if he wasn't anointed with the Shemen HaMishcha, he's not called a Mashuach, he's not called an anointed one, and therefore he brings a regular Korban Chatas just like any other Jew. The next part of the Mishnah says, Ein ben Kohen mishamesh lekohen sha'avar elapar Yom HaKippurim va'asirisa efa. The only difference between a Kohen who is in active duty and a Kohen who has been removed from his duty is the daily flour offering of the Asiris Ha'efa and the bull of the Kohen Gadol that's brought on Yom Kippur. Now, what do we mean by this? A person is appointed a Kohen Gadol, and we learned this in Maseches Yoma. Let's say he becomes Tameh or he becomes Puzzle for some other reason, and he's not able temporarily to act as the Kohen Gadol. There's always an understudy Kohen Gadol who's available to act in his stead. But once we bring up the understudy to become the active Kohen Gadol, what happens? That when the original Kohen Gadol becomes available again he becomes Tahor again. So the understudy remains a Kohen Gadol. As we'll see, the reason why is because Malin B'Kodesh Ve'in Moridin. You only go up in Kedusha, you never descend in Kedusha. So as a result, he remains the Kohen Gadol. You've got two guys who act as the Kohen Gadol. What's the difference between the two? So the original Kohen Gadol offers the daily flour offering of a Kohen Gadol, and he brings the offering for a Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur. The understudy still wears the 8 vestments, and he still has the din of a Kohen Gadol, but he has to defer in those 2 areas to the original Kohen Gadol. So the Gemara now says, just referring to that last line, it says, Ha'le'inyan par Yom Kippurim va'asirisa efa ze vazeh shavin. It sounds like, now this is actually going, referring to the last part, that it's a little bit difficult to understand Rashi. I'm not sure whether Rashi had a different girsa of our Gemara. It sounds like Rashi must have had a different girsa of our Gemara, because our first line in the Gemara is Ha'le'inyan par Yom HaKippurim va'asirisa efa zeva zeh shavin. referring back to the first part of the Mishnah that says that the only difference between a Kohen who's anointed and a Kohen Gadol who's not anointed is this special sin offering. So it sounds like the Gemara says that as far as the special bull of Yom Kippur, and the daily flour offerings that the Kohen Gadol brings, you don't have to be anointed, you still bring that. Fine, that's a statement. Rashi seems to have had a different girsa, but we'll deal with the girsa that's in front of us in the Gemara. Next, the Gemara says, Masnisin deloka Rebbe Meir. Now going to the second part of the Mishnah, which talks about the understudy who was now replaced by the original Kohen Gadol. Our Mishnah does not go according to Reb Meir. De'i Reb Meir hatanya meruba begad mevi par haba al kol hamitzvos divrei Reb Meir. Reb Meir, again, going back to, you see, we're jumping back between the first part of the Mishnah and the second part of the Mishnah. In the first part of the Mishnah, we were talking about a Kohen who was not anointed with the Shemen HaMishcha. And Rabbi Meir says that such a Kohen still brings the sin offering as prescribed by the Torah for a Kohen Gadol. The Chachamim omrim eino mevi, and the Chachamim say he doesn't bring. So our Mishnah seems to be going like the Chachamim, not like Reb Meir. My time of the Reb Meir, what's the reason of Reb Meir? Detanya Mashiach. Because the Torah calls him HaKohen HaMashiach, that he's the anointed Kohen. Ainli ela mashuach b'shemen hamishcha meruba begad minayin. That only tells me that he's anointed. How do you know that if he's not anointed by the anointing oil, but he's still the Kohen Gadol, he still brings the special sin offering? Talmud Omar HaMashiach. The extra letter Hey teaches me that even if he wasn't anointed, but just he's the Kohen Gadol, he also has to bring this special sin offering. So the Gemara says, "B'mayu kimna deloka Reb Meir, ema seifa." Okay, fine. So the first part of a Mishnah is not like Reb Meir. Now let's take a look at the second part of the Mishnah. Ein ben kohen mishamish lekohen she'aver elapar yom kippurim v'asira sa'efa halachol divreim zeh v'zeh shavin. So the only difference between the understudy and the regular Kohen Gadol is that the original Kohen Gadol brings the daily flour offering and the par on Yom Kippur. So, but in all other respects, the two of them are both Kohen Gadols. Ason le Reb Meir detanya irabo psul uminu kohen acher tachtav rishon chosu la'avodosahu sheni kol mitzvahs kahuna gedola olav div Reb Meir. That's exactly what Reb Meir says, that if they have the understudy temporarily take the place of the original Kohen Gadol, and then the original Kohen Gadol recovers from his tumah, and he goes back and he's reinstated, so the understudy retains his status as the Kohen Gadol, and they're both of them have a din of being a Kohen Gadol. That's according to Reb Meir. Rabbi Yossi Omer Rishon Chozer LaAvodah, so Sheni Eino Roy Lo Kohen Gadol Lo Kohen Hedjot. And Rabbi Yossi disagrees with Reb Meir. He says no. He says the understudy, once he's removed because the original comes back, he cannot act as a regular Kohen, nor can he act as a Kohen Gadol. Va'amar Rabbi Yossi Ma'aseh Rabbi Yossi ben Ula mitzipori shirabo psul bekohen gadol uminu tachtav u'b'ma'aseh lifnei chachamim v'amru rishon choser la'avodah so sheina eneroi lo lekohen gadol v'lo lekohen hedjot. And this actually once happened historically by a man whose name was Rabbi Yosef ben Ulam from the city of Tzipori, that he was the understudy, and the original Kohen Gadol developed some kind of tumah. They appointed the understudy in his stead, and when the original was able to come back, they said that this Rabbi Yosef was not able to act in the capacity of either a Kohen Gadol or a regular Kohen. Why? Kohen Gadol mishum Eva, Kohen Hedjot mishum Malam b'Kodesh v'lo Moridin. He can't act as a Kohen Gadol because of the animosity that's going to be created, the rivalry and the unhealthy jealousy that will arise. How you can't have two Kohen Gadols. You can only have one Kohen Gadol. So sorry, Rabbi Yosef, you can't be the Kohen Gadol. So he said, okay, fine, so let me be a regular Kohen. They said, no, you can't because Malan b'Kodesh. We only allow you to ascend in Kedusha, not to descend. So once you've been the Kohen Gadol, you can never go back. So basically you're stuck, and you can't do the avoda at all. So the Gemara's question is as follows: Reisha Rabbanan v'Seifa Rebbe Meir ? This is the problem. The problem is, how can you tell me that the first part of our Mishnah goes not like Rebbe Meir? Because according to Rebbe Meir, if a person is not anointed with the Shemen HaMishcha, he still brings the special sin offering, and our Mishnah says he doesn't. And the second part of the Mishnah seems to go like Rebbe Meir, who says that that he remains, the understudy retains his status as the Kohen Gadol. So the Gemara says, Amar Rav Chisda ein in Reisha Rabbana b'Sefer Reb Meir. So Rav Chisda says, yes, that's taka the way you read it. That this mission has to be bifurcated. The first part goes according to the Chachamim. The second part goes according to Reb Meir. Rav Yosef Amar Rebbe Hivanasiv La Liba Tanai. Rav Yosef says, no, that's not how you read it. Really, the way you read it is that the whole Mishnah is authored by one person, Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi. Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi reserves the right to paskin in certain aspects like the Chachamim, and in other aspects he paskins like Reb Meir. So when it comes to the Havalacha of an anointed Kohen Gadol, he paskins against Reb Meir like the Chachamim, and it says he does not bring the special sin offering. When it comes to the understudy Kohen Gadol, he paskins like Reb Meir, who says that the understudy retains the status of a Kohen Gadol. Let's go on to the next Mishnah quickly. Ein bein bama gedola lebama ketana el psachim. That the only difference, now here we're talking about during times historically when there's no temple and there's no Mishkan. So there's different periods in Jewish history when something called a bama was permitted. A bama is an altar that is outside the temple and is outside the Mishkan. There are two types of bamas. One is called the large bama, which is the central bama, which was in Givon and in Gilgal, that was set up to be the central location for offering karbanos. And then there was something called the bama ketana, which anyone could make in their backyard. You could set up your own little altar when there's no temple. So what's the difference halachically between the two? Ela psachim, the korban pesach. You can only offer the korban pesach on the bama gedola, not on the bama ketana. And therefore, zeh haklal kol shehu nidar v'nidev karev bebama, v'chol she'eno lo nidar v'lo nidev eno karev bebama. The rule is that anything which can be brought as a voluntary korban can be brought on a private bama. But anything that's obligatory, like the korban pesach, can only be made on a bama gedola, on a large bama. So the Gemara says psachim v'sulo. Why is it only the korban pesach? What do you mean it's only the korban pesach? If you told me that only voluntary offerings can be brought on a private bama, so then why limit yourself to korban pesach? Any obligatory korban can only be brought on the bama gedola. So the Gemara says, Ema ke'ein psachim. You're right. When we say that the korban pesach is the only difference, it means any korban that's like the korban pesach. What do we mean that it's like the korban pesach? Mani Reb Shimon, it goes like Reb Shimon. The Tanya Reb Shimon Omer, af tzibur lo hikruve el pesachim b'chovo shekavu lahem zman. Av'chovo she'en kavu lahem zman, hacha v'hacha lo karev. What it means is, the reason why we're using the example as the korban pesach is the korban pesach is an example of an obligatory korban that has to be brought by the tzibur, brought by the congregation, and it has a set time for its being brought. Other karbanos may be obligatory for the congregation. Let's say the congregation accidentally worships Avodah Zarah, and they want to atone for it. You can't bring it either on a bama gedola or a bama ketana. That's according to Rav Shimon. And therefore we use the example of korban pesach to include any obligatory korban that has to be brought by an entire congregation that has a set time for it to be brought. That includes not only the korban pesach, it includes a korban tamid, the daily korban offering. It includes korban musaf, right? All of the things that are obligatory for a tzibur that the Torah prescribes that have a set time, that's what's included. Let's finish off with the final Mishnah. Ein bein Shiloh li Yerushalayim ela shebeshilo ochlin kadshim kalum u'maiser sheni b'chol haroeh u'v'Yerushalayim lifnim min hachoma. That again, now that we're talking about the temple and the Mishkan, where was the Mishkan set up in Eretz Yisrael? It was set up in the city of Shiloh. Anyone who's been to Shiloh knows it. You get the tour of where they believe the Mishkan was set up, right? So, is there any difference halachically between the laws of the Mishkan and the laws of the Beis HaMikdash? Well, it has to do with in the respect of Kodshim Kalim, sacrificial meat that when the temple is standing, the halacha is you can eat it within the confines of the city of Yerushalayim. So as long as you're within the walls of Yerushalayim, you can eat the korban meat of Shlomim, let's say, which is called Kodshim Kalim, a lower form of Kedusha. What about the city of Shiloh? The city of Shiloh didn't have wall around it, so how far could you take the meat out to eat it? So the answer is B'chol Haroeh, that as long as you could still see the tabernacle, you were allowed to eat the meat. Once you couldn't see it anymore, you're already too far away. The kan v'kan, and in both cases, both in Shiloh and in the temple, Kadshe Kadshim Nechalim Lifnim in Hakloyim, that if we're dealing with higher kedusha of meat, a higher kedusha of korban, let's say a korban chatas that is eaten by the kohanim, so in the Beis Hamikdash you have to eat it within the temple confines itself, and comparably in Shiloh you have to eat it within the curtains of the Mishkan. Kedusha Shiloh yesh acharei heter, kedusha Yerushalayim ein acharei heter. And finally, as far as the kedusha of Shiloh, right? Once the Mishkan was destroyed, there was now the kedusha was removed from Shiloh to the point where bamas were once again permitted. But once the temple was destroyed in Yerushalayim, the kedusha of the temple was permanent, such that there was never any time where bamas were permitted after the temple was destroyed. You all have a wonderful day.